Our daily Bible reading and devotional for March the 9th. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14. We'll begin reading in verse 26. When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though they all fall away, I will not." And Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said emphatically, "If I must die with you, I will not deny you." And they all said the same. And they went to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." And going a little farther, he fell on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. And he came the 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough. The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and the scribes and elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Seize him and lead him away under guard." And when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and he kissed him. And they laid hands on him and seized him. But one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus said to them, "Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I was with you in the temple, teaching, and you did not seize me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled." And they all left him and fled. And a young man followed him, with nothing but a linen cloth about his body. And they seized him, but he left the linen cloth and ran away naked. A few thoughts for today. Each of the 4 Gospels, in Matthew chapter 26, Mark 14, Luke 22, and John 18, give us an insight into the events surrounding the arrest of Jesus in the garden. As the soldiers approach the spot where Judas had instructed them to go, they wait for the sign he will give them to identify the one they had come for. How ironic, to our way of thinking, that it would be a kiss that Judas uses to mark Jesus. Interesting the details that are included in each of the accounts. Matthew and Mark give us almost identical accounts. Matthew adds, "Friend, do what you have come for," in verse 50. While Luke adds Jesus asking, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" in verse 48 of that chapter. John adds that this place was where Jesus often met with the disciple, a fact Luke has mentioned earlier in the chapter. John also includes a conversation Jesus has with those who came to seize him, asking, "Whom do you seek?" And upon hearing him admit that he was the one, they fell back on the ground. John also includes the prophecy, "Of those whom you have given me, I lost not one." When Jesus prayed earlier, he uttered the fact that one would betray him, and that the scripture there would be fulfilled. "Let his days be few, let another take his office," from the 109th Psalm. It is at this point that a most amazing event occurs. that of Peter drawing his sword and cutting off the ear of Malchus, the slave of the high priest. Only Luke the physician records the fact that Jesus performs a miracle by healing Malchus. It is at this point that Jesus utters the phrase, "Put your sword back in its place, for all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword," recorded by Matthew alone. Jesus points out the fact that day after day he taught openly in the temple, and yet it is in the middle of the night that they come for him with clubs and swords as they would a robber. Jesus, knowing his hour had come, now resigns himself to the fact that this must happen and assures those around him that it is a fulfillment of Scriptures and that this hour and the power of darkness are yours. Luke verse 53. It is at this point that those closest to Jesus flee from the garden and leave Jesus alone to face his accusers. How interesting the details that each draws upon to give us the complete picture of what happened that fateful night. One must be willing to search to find truth, yet truth is there waiting to be discovered. Question of the day. Have you ever laid the four Gospels side by side to compare their accounts of any given event? And finally, a thought to meditate on this day. Each author gives us unique views of the life of Jesus. Though some seem to conflict each other, in the end we find that they are in complete harmony. An amazing feat considering the times. And those are our thoughts for today, March 9th.